Hello, and welcome to About the Albums. Today we're talking about King of Space, an album recorded and originally put out in December of 2012. And this one, in general, was just one where I guess I wanted to have a number of spacey sounding songs, and I think some of this maybe was after I'd taken some. I don't remember if it was like a philosophy class, like an ethics class, something like that, just a beginner one. And yeah, I think some of that maybe influenced a few, at least one of the songs here, but a few of the songs in like thinking about things, I guess. But in general, a lot of it is just like, hey, I'm I don't know, I just, again, I like space stuff, as I've mentioned a few times. So a lot of it is doing that, and also a lot of these are using I believe most of the songs are using the effects pedal, either on my voice or on the music, for them. So that's you'll be hearing a lot of that in here as well. So, King of Space, there's not much more to say for prefacing it, other than, I mean, that's also kind of funny that it's just the idea of, like, me being so, like, pessimistic and hating myself so much, and then be like, by the way, I'm King of Space. I don't know. Funny idea. To me. Probably to no one else, but to me. And since I'm probably the only one that really listens to these anyways, that's okay. Crown of a Thousand Stars is an instrumental start to this that, funny enough, doesn't do any of the effects that I said was on all the songs. Maybe it's not on all the songs, I guess. Maybe I was misremembering that, too. I just remember doing it a lot. But because it's instrumental, it doesn't really need it, necessarily, and so I didn't use it on this one. And I just kind of was using these spacey themes. Obviously, it's just kind of an intro thing, so it really is a simple riff, kind of just building on the same thing and putting parts on it. And there's a little bit of a different part in the middle. It takes a little while to get there. I noticed I kind of like was hanging on some stuff for a while because there's probably a certain number in like the measures or whatever that it counts out on the display. So I was waiting for the part where it did that. I also noticed I messed up on the drums a lot and tried to kind of cover it by varying things in certain parts where I didn't really plan to do it. So it's a little sloppy when I'm listening to it back, but it still sounds cool. I think I picked some neat tones. I had a neat main riff that went along with it, and the name is mostly there to try and evoke thoughts of a cool space crown rather than just a regular crown or just regular space. You put them both together and add in cool, and that's hopefully what you get is this. And that's how we start off the album. So that was Crown of a Thousand Stars.
Feel these things, emotions inside, all feelings seem to coincide. Some of them we may try to hide, just feel them, take them for a ride.
Desolate Soul not only puts another hole in the whole I use the effects on all these songs idea. Let's just forget I said that. But it's also the second song on the album. This one, I believe, I came up with the riff first, like the bass riff, and I kept adding stuff on top of it. And I just really liked how it kind of like flowed with like kind of like the natural beat of that. Also, like, everything kind of like tried to follow with their own kind of like rhythms and stuff on it. I don't know, just like the kind of like putting those pieces together and having them all be kind of like punchy and whatever, and like sort of like short things. I don't know, like the way it came together, I guess is what I'm saying. It sounds cool. The pieces coming together sounds neat, and I think the singing is a little bit lacking in this one, just because it's like I don't feel like I sold it real well. It was maybe like a touch out of my range. Plus, like, I didn't really do anything all that different with my voice through the whole thing, so it gets kind of boring to have this huge chunk of me singing. But the way I had it set up was like sing, make sure I get all the words out, and then once it's there, we're good. I don't know. But On the other hand, the interesting part about this is that lyrically, you'll notice it is kind of another sad, depressing. It's called Desolate Soul. It's kind of sad, depressing thing about just like wanting things to be good and for things to work, but knowing that they ultimately like will not work. These things don't work that way. And I think I wrote it. I believe I may have wrote it back in high school, or it was like early college. I'm not sure which, but it was. I'm thinking it was high school. I had like an old like poem that like I had, and so I just took that and I actually managed to be like, oh, I can fit this on these like this, and so I sang it as like a song, even though it's based on like a poem for lyrically. So this is a little bit more interesting with lyrics because it was something I thought about outside of how is it going to fit with a song, but also a little different because it didn't necessarily feel natural like a lot of songs where it's like, here's a line and now let's build other verses and stuff around the ideas from the main line that came to mind that I really felt when I did it. So it's just an interesting, different way of doing a song, and that is Desolate Soul.
We don't live in a world. We don't live in a world.
We don't live in a world finally makes me not look like such a goddamn liar with an effect on my voice. It's about basically this race of creatures that doesn't really have a planet that it's from. They're just kind of born like in space and they're going around in space. And it's just they don't have any home world or any place to specifically be like, we're from here. So this idea that like, you know, other like species have their own like planets and places of origin, places they can call home, and this race of aliens or whatever doesn't. So that was kind of the basis of it, which works well. I mean, again, look, if you want to hear about sad things, I can make songs about that all day. That's mainly all I did for most of these albums. So also for the tones, it's all bass tones. I just use a bunch of different bass tones, and some of them are lower, some of them are like low, like the bass range. Some of them I have in like the mid range, some of them are kind of high. So other than like the drums, which are obviously using drums, I've got like just all bass tones to make the music, which adds an interesting sound to it, rather than other forms of picking instruments. It's just one of the many ways I experimented with trying to create different sounds and songs when all I really wanted to do was make a bunch of songs and didn't have enough creativity to really, or talent. Let's face it, I mostly just didn't have enough talent to go around, so I did it with some weird things instead, and thus we don't live in a world. WeirdSpace is an instrumental song with an effect on it, once again making me not a fucking liar. And the idea behind it is just kind of going through a weird part of space. You know, is it weird because of just something's like going on? Is something happening in this part of space? Or is this part of space just naturally this strange and, weird? I don't know. And the other interesting tidbit about this is just that I used all organ tones for this one on there. So organ tones with that effect on to try and make it sound, just again, trying to create a certain kind of sound along with certain limitations or rules or whatever. It's just, it's a thing I like to do, just kind of place some kind of idea in place and try to work with it, because it's the idea of, I don't know the best way to put it, but it's kind of like the idea of, okay, well, here you have a piece of paper, right? And you're given like 3 crayons. What can you make with those 3 crayons? You got to get kind of creative with that. Versus here's a full box of crayons to make whatever you want on that piece of paper. So it's kind of it makes you think in a different way. It makes you try to get more out of less, and it makes you kind of think about what are the strengths of these things that I do have, versus just trying to use everything else to try to make up for maybe some weaknesses you might have in other places, that kind of thing. And that can go over into other stuff, like when I've talked about, when I've talked about like reviews and stuff for like video games, a lot of that kind of talks about this concept too, where it's like, if there's more like care and creativity put into this, if you're like trying to work around these limitations rather than being able to do whatever you want and not necessarily even living up to that potential, knowing what to do. It just kind of helps give you some sense of direction, motivation, and you can get some pretty cool stuff out of this when you set some limitations for yourself. So that's my my whole spiel, and that's a pretty good spiel to come out of an instrumental song called WeirdSpace. Song About Gravity is a song about gravity. And it's pretty simple in that sense that it's about gravity. But really, it's kind of talking about two sides of gravity, where on the one side, you're looking at it kind of like this, almost like a philosophical kind of like idea of a thing, where it's like gravity, like it's just this like, or like a metaphor, like metaphorical kind of thing. I guess it's keeping you down. It's this pressure. Like without gravity, you could just fly. You would be free. We can't. That's why like the chorus kind of goes into that. It's like, so when it's saying like we can't get away with this, it's sort of saying like we can't get away, but also saying we can't do away with this. And I guess that kind of works that way too. Is like it's an oppressive thing we can't get rid of. But then on the more like literal sense of like gravity is a thing that like keeps you on the earth and keeps you from going off like out into the atmosphere and into space or whatever, out of the atmosphere and dying. We can't do away with gravity, or that's going to fuck up a whole lot of things on the planet. So it kind of has a bit of a duality there. It was mostly when I was writing it about the actual physical, like, laws of science, gravity, but it could kind of work both ways. And another just cool space thing. Also, you may have been able to hear this. My stomach's making a lot of noises tonight, too. So that's fun. And I can't just edit those out because it doesn't work. And on top of that, I may have maybe the exposure's too high. Maybe I can fix that in post. Who knows? But the information is what's important, and I can only be fucked to do so much with the editing at this point. So you can deal with it, or you can get the hell out. That's your own fucking problem. Also, the song ends with me yelling "no" really loudly, so that's kind of goofy. A song, not a song. A song. Is it a song about gravity or a song about gravity? Song about gravity. Well, I'm thinking there's an A in there. I mean, there is an A in gravity, but... And about. In other news... Fucking... Why can't we get along? Why can't we get along? A Look at Creatures is another one that's kind of a result of that class, where... I was thinking about this, like, we did kind of go over this thing about, like, animals and this thing where, it's kind of a common thing to go over, right, where it's like, oh, like, is it okay to eat animals or whatever, and, like, it did kind of bring up the thing to me, I guess, of, like, yeah, like, you think about it, yeah, like, there's another set of creatures or animals, we're all kind of animals, really. So, like, why is that different? Why is it different for them, compared to us, that kind of thing? And like, it's a song very much based on that. I really like the piano piece in it too, like, just like the music to it, I really liked. I think they came out pretty well. The voice effect maybe wasn't the best. It was okay. It's probably better than me just singing it as just my voice, but, yeah, Look at Creatures is one that I've actually really liked. I think it came out really well. Especially for something that I don't feel super strongly about, but I was pretty interested in. I was kind of fascinated by it. So it's one that I think maybe comes off as if I care more than I do, even. But it's just really interesting, and so I'm glad that the music is also cool, because the concept kind of interested me in A Look at Creatures. Awake from sleeping, it's time again. Get up, moving, it's time Sam's Awakening is, well, the title is based on Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, kind of playing off of the whole Legend of Sam thing I did before, replacing a name with me. And the song itself is just kind of about that you have to like wake up, and the hero has to like wake up and take the sword and fight off these invaders from the town. So it's almost like a, it's kind of like a classic kind of hero story thing, sort of. References to that sort of idea, anyways, with medieval sword and sorcery kind of stuff. I really, like, I thought the singing was, like, rough. I feel like I hit some weird notes and I didn't quite sing it the way I wanted to, in my head. But, and I mean, I did do it again later, which we will see, where I tried to redo it and do it better. But I do really like the solo, in the end parts. I think that actually came out pretty cool with the way the tones and, like, the distortion on it and the echo were. So I really liked that part of it. So overall, not too bad, that Sam's Awakening. Warp Speed and Nowhere to Go is an instrumental that's not so much about being lost as it is about just being directionless, just kind of, where do we go? What do we do now? There's not a whole lot to it. It's because it is an instrumental one, so there's not a whole lot to really say, I think. But I will say a little neat thing. I do like the whatever drum tone that was. It sounds like almost like bubbles or something in the background. It's like such a weird one that I guess I don't notice that I've ever used before or after this, or if I have, it's like never like intentionally that I've noticed it. But I obviously very intentionally used it here, and like it sounds goofy. But I kind of like it. It's one of those things I just kind of remember. Just kind of sticks out within all the different instruments used in it. But it's another instrumental one, and I guess I kind of like that there were a few instrumentals thrown in here to kind of break up some of the otherwise very much a lot of me in my voice in your, well, not in your face so much as in your ears, unless you put like your headphones over your face, in which case then it would be in your face. With Warp Speed and Nowhere to Go. Put 'em on a Rock is a pretty simple one where it just kind of builds over, kind of the same riffs going. I'm trying to kind of build up on top of that. And then, so I thought that part was catchy. And I couldn't really think of words, and so I just repeated the same thing. And I varied it up a little bit. Where I had it going for so many times, and I changed it a little. And then I just did basically like an octave up of that, or tried to. I couldn't quite hit it as well as I wanted to. You can tell I'm kind of floundering on those notes. But it's about essentially like, I guess in the context of the album, it's like, yeah, you put them on like somebody on an asteroid out in the middle of space, like fuck them, leave them on an asteroid. But also it could be seen as, like more of like just a seafaring thing of like put them on a rock in the middle of the ocean, like fuck it, like not my problem anymore. You're plopped on a rock. So there's a few ways you could look at it, but it's just a simple kind of song that moves and it has some neat tones in it. I liked a lot of the instruments I picked. I think went well. So it's an okay song that I guess I was also hoping might get caught, in your head a little bit. You're like, oh yeah, put 'em on a rock. You sing along because you know all the words pretty quick in Put 'Em on a Rock.
Just try one more time. Just try one more time. Just give one more time. Just give one more time.
Dreamer's Delight is interesting because I don't remember a whole lot about the real intent behind what when I was writing it, what I was really feeling, or what I wanted to convey with it. I think, from some of the lyrics, it was kind of one of those where it's like talking about things of like, find the point that will give us point to live. Like I'm trying to find out like reasons why we should exist. What's the meaning of life, point of life, kind of thing. And like trying to like talking about like trying to like live your life and trying to figure stuff out, and then kind of being like going back and forth between like save me or kill me, and what's the difference, which one is saving me, what is killing me, like what's is this all a dream, is this my dream, is this your dream, is this someone else's dream, and probably faint vibes of, again, like I mentioned, Link's Awakening, probably faint vibes of the whole like spoiler for that game of that game, and how like dreams are affecting it. I guess like it's not really a spoiler, but it's like dreams are affecting it. If I don't spoil it, then it's not a spoiler. So good, I saved it. Don't know anything about Link's Awakening other than something to do with dreams, and that the song may or may not make you think about it later. It probably won't, but it did me because I like that game, and this has the word dream in it, and that's because it's called Dreamer's Delight.
Oh, what a twisted world. Oh, what a twisted world.
Oh, Twisted World is about just this group that's going around space and looking at different planets. Basically, they're just kind of going around and like almost like maybe a race you see on like a classic like Star Trek kind of thing, where it's like, we're trying to see if you're worthy of whatever. So just judging a bunch of different species and planets and whatnot. And that was kind of the thought for like, we're just like, they're evaluating Earth. And this sort of ties in a bit with a look at creatures, because it's like as I mentioned, the creatures, like, can they coexist? And it's like, just like people like, can't really get along, and all the creatures are not really, there's the different, like, obviously humans are not being real great to not only other humans, but also other species of creatures and everything on the planet. And so they kind of just decide, like, it's not like terrible, but it's like, it's not like good, or it's not like really significant in any way, which I guess maybe is a bit counteracted by saying it's a twisted world, but like I guess it kind of implies that a lot of worlds are twisted. The bass line in the main, like in the verse parts, actually was kind of inspired by like playing around and kind of trying to find the bass line for Rusty Bucket Bay from Banjo-Kazooie. I don't think I found it, but it's like, it sounds kind of like that, and so like that I liked that a little tidbit with the bass. Plus, it also like I think it came out well with like the singing actually came out pretty good with like, I think I sang it pretty well for like what I'm capable of doing. Plus, like the effect in it actually helped. It didn't make it sound like crazy or anything. I just kind of helped accentuate what was already good about it. So I really liked that aspect of it, and I guess it kind of made it so like both the verses and like the chorus, both those parts were like, I was like, oh, these are cool, I like it, and so I kind of like the whole song, and I think it came out, just really, really well with the way it was just done, which is surprising that I don't have a like parts in here where I'm like, man, I should have done this, or I should have fixed that, or whatever. It all came out really well. Oh, Twisted World. Whoa, Distorted Space is very strategically placed right after Oh Twisted World, because it has the comma in the title, and whoa and oh, I don't know, that was the idea. The song itself is just about being in a really weird part of space that's like distorted. It's hard to tell like where you are. You can't really get your bearings or coordinates. You don't know which way you're going, which way you came from, which way you want to go. Everything's just really hard to make out in this part of space. It's really distorted. And also, to go along with that, I had a distortion on my voice. Also, like a flange effect, too. So it's like kind of like warping it and making it really weird. And it's just like, you don't want to be like in encounters or like having weird stuff happen in a place that's already really strange in the first place. Like, we gotta get out of here. This is nuts. That was kind of the feeling I was going for. It's also kind of cool. I mean, I like the way it goes into like the whole solo thing, and then like actually comes out of it, and there's like another verse before it like comes out of it. It has like a nice ending. Because I noticed that that wasn't a thing as much here, where I feel like a lot of songs on this album so far pretty much have been like, either it's a straight like build up to like the end of it, or like it'll be like a solo, and then like after that it's pretty much the end, or solo right to the chorus again, then ending. So having go back to like a verse after that, I don't know, it's a nice little change of pace with Whoa, Distorted Space. Also, I spelled Whoa. I think a lot of people spell Whoa without the extra H on it, but I have it on there kind of like, yeah. I feel like it has to have the H on the end. I feel like it looks weird without the H at the end. So that is why I spelled it that way in Whoa, Distorted Space. The Loneliest Throne is the penultimate song on the album. It's an instrumental, using just me messing around with a piano with a distortion and flange on it for the effect. I didn't really plan most of that. It's just kind of playing around and seeing what kind of cool stuff I could make for kind of this feeling of isolated contemplation before we get to the final titular track, because there can be only one king of space, and that king must sit atop the loneliest throne.
Space. I am king of space. Space. I am king of space.
King of Space, the final song on the album, the title track, the moment we've all been waiting for. And you know what? I still think it's pretty awesome. It's about the King of Space being the King of Space, and how you just control everything. You are just the decider of who lives and who dies. I mean, you are space. That's how much you rule space. You are space. That's the King of Space. It's a great, hilarious concept. I think it's also just extra funny to have me sing it, as from like the first person perspective, just because of my notoriously low self-esteem. Just to be like, by the way, I'm the King of Space. Just like as an extra layer of like that's really funny to me. But I think it's like a pretty catchy song, and I think it's still cool, and I think it came out pretty good. The only part that I think is kind of maybe a little weak, it's just there's a couple parts where I'm like doing a thing where I'm just speaking, and it's supposed to sound powerful, but it sounds like me. And the other thing is that when I go up really like high and I'm like loud in that one spot, then like right after it, because of like the way the microphone works on that camera, it made all like the instruments and everything kind of go quiet for a few seconds, because they're trying to adjust for like making sure the entirety of the audio wasn't way too loud. So interesting feature to have on there, but sometimes it messes with songs a little bit like that. But that is the album of King of Space, and I gotta say, I still really like it. I think it's a neat album. It's a good way to get out the whole I really like space stuff out of my system, so I don't have to continually do tons of different songs about space so much. Not to say that I don't do songs about space anymore, but like getting a whole album's worth of stuff kind of more centered around being kind of spacey, it kind of helps get some of that out of my system, so it's not so much of it, even though I also did a concept album that was an instrumental thing that's not up anymore, that was also about space. But you gotta do something. You keep it from overwhelming everything you do, so it's not like, oh, this is the space song for this album, here's the space one. And again, I think I like to think it was helpful, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just me making excuses for myself. But thank you for showing up for this episode of About the Albums. I'm going to put the timestamps and the links in the description, put the playlist down there. So hopefully that's all good stuff. Hopefully it sounds good. Hopefully it looks good. We're still hoping all this stuff is we're living on hope that this is good. And for those of you in the pool, the button is still there. So, it might be overexposed. Oops. But it's still there. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you guys next time. So the cover for King of Space is just me finding a space background with a bunch of stars from a Google image search. And then I have that generic picture of me I use all the time. And I drew a really crude looking crown. I don't know if you can tell in MS Paint there. I also reused the pig from Be Weird, Be Happy, and I put the rocket up there, and to make it look like a rocket, I just drew the rocket because I wanted that to be like an MS Paint rocket to kind of go with the jarring style. And for the flames on the rocket, I just found a picture of a mushroom cloud, and I put that up there. All brilliantly remastered for this in MS Paint again by retracing some of the colors, kind of go around some of the outlines of things to try and make it look like there's less. So there's not a bunch of like crazy artifacting around there, a bunch of weird like blotches. And now it just has really weird, squiggly, jagged edges that way. But at least it looks slightly better, which is probably it's probably pretty sad to admit, but it does. And that's really all I did to it. And this is just hysterically terrible. But what do you think? Do you also think it's hysterically terrible, or is it just me? Because I mean, like what the fuck?